Hey, come here. Check it out. Look at that. That is some rain that I got yesterday. Also, Kata just got up under me, I think, to look at Draco. Yep. What do you think, guys? Nobody wants to come outside with me? Might that be because it's actually wet out here for once? 4/10 of an inch is not that much. It's not going to fix the drought that we've been in. But I'm still excited because it's rain, and it happened over like 3-ish hours in the middle of the night according to my weather station, and that's a good soaking, you know, that gives it plenty of time to get into the soil and help absorb into the organic matter in the soil that acts like little sponges, and hopefully keep my plants watered for at least a little bit. So this week I want to do something a little different and actually start with the rotating segment instead of ending with it, because it is pretty relevant to the rain. So I haven't checked on these logs, these mushroom logs, in a video in a while, because nothing really has been going on. But I think it's about time to talk more about the fact that nothing's going on and kind of what is happening there. I do think it is drought related, because definitely these logs need to be pretty wet for the mushrooms to want to fruit. And this one in particular, you can see it has fruited, but this is old, and this is not shiitake. This is a Trametes of some kind, a relative of turkey tail, and definitely not what I was hoping for. So I think, like, if I had the capacity to soak these, I might be able to try and force them to fruit, but I do not have a way to soak these with water. Don't have a container big enough. Don't honestly want to pay for the water to do that. So these are just left to the elements. This one was standing up like the other one, but it did fall over, and I decided to leave it. It'll have more contact with the ground anyway. These ones that are buried upright, I had buried this way on the recommendation of somebody who came to talk at the local mushroom club. And, you know, because of the drought, it's hard to say if this is actually like a method that is working for me. The log that we inoculated at the actual mushroom club has also not fruited. And I know it was the correct type of wood because they provided it. The spawn was good because they provided it. And you can see that this is the only one that actually does not have any of that Trametes growing all over it. And so I am thinking that these logs that I got from an arborist friend who, you know, was cutting down a tree nearby that was of the right type, and, you know, cut these up for me to take home. And I bet that tree was getting cut down because it was starting to die and probably was already pre-infected with some, you know, fungal spores. So I bet that's what happened here. And I wonder if it had been wetter, if my shiitake would have been able to outcompete it. The spawn that I used in these was also starting to get kind of old. It was given to me by somebody and then kept in my fridge for a very long time. I think, like, you know, on the order of months. And so those two things together came with this really unsteady recipe for mushroom logs. But this one should have fruited properly. And, you know, I'm a little disappointed that it hasn't. But again, I think proper water would probably help this out quite a bit. Now, something I have done with previous logs that you guys have seen, these are my lion's mane logs, and these are sitting in my swale. This is theoretically where the water collects when we have big rains. Usually that happens in the early spring, is when we get rain fast enough for this to actually fill up. And I was hoping that that would help these force fruit. And I have gotten, like, I think in the spring I got like one tiny lion's mane this year. Not enough to talk about, barely big enough to eat. You know, not just a whole lot. Lion's mane is definitely one of those ones that's harder to work with outdoors because it's not quite as robust as something like wine cap or shiitake. and does have a little bit more trouble outcompeting other things. But I don't see a lot of other things growing on these logs. And so I'm thinking the lion's mane probably did a pretty good job of colonizing it. It just needed, again, more water, and that is kind of the story of that is the story of the year, is everything needs a little bit more water. And then, you know, regardless of mushrooms or no mushrooms, I am kind of enjoying watching how long it actually takes for a log to decompose, and like actually watch it. You know, it's in a spot where I'm checking on it all the time because I am looking for those mushrooms. And these logs are like 3-ish years old now, I think. And it's really cool to see how solid they still are. And I think it gives a good idea of what happens when I put those logs underneath the soil in my raised beds, and how long those actually take to decompose as well. It's just a cool thing to see and to watch happen in real time, because I think we often see logs like as we're hiking or something, or in the yard in places where we don't look at them very often, and we don't keep that like mental calendar of how long it's actually taking to decompose and watching all the different stages of the process. So I'm enjoying that. Alright, so let's get into the actual garden. I think you guys can tell me if this is true, but I think everything looks greener. Like, I think it just looks so much happier than it did before the rain. And we're definitely getting towards the end of the season here, so some of the plants look, you know, not the healthiest. My zinnias always get this leaf spot disease. And if we come through to the beans, you can see some of these leaves are looking a little worse for the wear. They've been munched, they've got just a little bit of disease. They're a little shriveled because of the lack of water. Again, I do have a drip irrigation system, but I do not have the money to be running that all the time, so I have to be very judicious. And some of these newer ones look pretty good. So I like to see that. I am harvesting only what I need, like fresh from this, and everything else is being allowed to make seeds for me. Like this one right here. Oh, look at that green. That's very interesting looking. Some sort of mold. But in here are some dried beans that I can harvest and keep for next year. And these are not just seeds to plant, but also edible dried beans. I like to use them in chilies. They're pretty great. They actually turn like a light to dark brownish color once they're fully dry. This turmeric plant here on the edge is definitely looking healthier. Yesterday when I saw its leaves are all curled in on itself, but it's actually unfurled its leaves, which is really great news. I am very excited to try my turmeric this year. It's my first year growing it. And if we look past the turmeric, we can see in the grass little bits of strawberry here. The grass definitely took over before the strawberries could get their footing. But I'm hoping like the grass will die back and the strawberries will come back first in the spring before the grass does. And I'm kind of hoping that the strawberries will help shade out a lot of the grass that I've got going on between the edge of the garden and this very overgrown sidewalk over here. I'm still not sure what to do about the sidewalk, if I'm being honest. You can see it disappears under the neighbor's grass over there. And theoretically, like from the edge of the sidewalk to the street is owned by the city, and it's up to them to upkeep it. But you know, I live in an area where they don't really care. Like if I call them, they're not going to do anything. And even if they did, right? Imagine they tore up this sidewalk and rebuilt it. Like that is right next to my garden. I think it would get flattened, you know? So I don't know what I'm doing about that. There's definitely a big hole there where things have caved in. Keeping it clear of grass is a struggle, especially since I don't want to spray anything on it. So if y'all have like suggestions for me, I'm so open to that. This section of sidewalk over here isn't quite as bad, but it still has some struggle, and the steps I have to weed so much because of the plants that grow in the cracks are so strong. They want to be there so badly. Let's go on further down here. I just pulled basil for pesto yesterday, and you can see these little spots where I've cut, and then the new slits coming on. I've still got like about a month of basil growing time, and at the end of that I will make as much pesto as I can, and also probably give away a fair bit of basil as well. Drying basil I could do, but with like regular cooking basil I don't tend to do it, just because it loses a lot of its flavor in the drying process, and I feel like it's just not really worth it to keep it around as a dried spice. The flavored ones though, like my lemon basil, my cinnamon basil, my holy basil, excellent dried, and I mostly use those for teas. So I guess if I wanted to make like a regular basil tea I could, but I don't see why I would when I have holy basil. I definitely need to scoot up to the top of my priority list, kind of cleaning this area up, getting some of the dead tomato vines out, and going through and trying again to plant some more fava beans in here and some more peas. Part of what has been stalling me out is A, priorities, but also B, just the fact that keeping all of this foliage up helps shade the soil and helps keep it more damp and protected for germination in the first place, especially with all the heat and the drought that we've been having. And so it's kind of a trade-off where I have to decide how much of this do I pull out, how exposed do I really want this to be to the sun and everything. So, you know, I'm still figuring it out. I was hoping I would see more stuff sprouted by now. I think last week we discovered a fava bean somewhere along here, but I can't remember where it was. Oh wow, look at this tomato. I think we've gone through, okay, tomatoes are looking really bad time, and now I'm getting better looking tomatoes because the leaf-footed bugs seem to have died or moved on. Like, I see very few of them now, and so my tomatoes are actually starting to look better again. So that's really good news for me being lazy. People will say that they don't taste as good later in the season, but I add them all to like sauces and salsas anyway, so it's less obvious. And not much else to see down at this end, I would say. Oh, I did find my fava bean. It was like literally right in front of me. Right here. It is. It's here. It could be a little stockier. It's a little flimsy and just a little bit leggy looking. But we have a fava bean, which means maybe there's a couple more hiding in here that I haven't seen yet. The grass in this area of the garden is getting truly ridiculous. Some of it is like up to my knees, and I haven't pulled it, again, because I feel like the soil needs that protection. And the plants seem to be holding their own against it. We haven't checked in on this little lavender here in a little bit. It is doing all right, and it probably, again, will come back in the spring before the grass does, and that'll give it a good chance to carve out its space here, and I'll give it a little bit more space with the annuals as well at that time. Eggplant right here, it's looking pretty good. You can see another little baby coming on. I actually was able to make a couple of eggplant dishes this week with my fresh eggplant, and I wish I'd been having that all season, but I will take what I can get. In here we're starting to actually be able to really see the peas that I planted. Like, look at this guy. He is having a good time. Here's another one. Let's see what else is out here. There's another pea right there. They are in between my sweet peppers. There's another one right there. And I thought maybe I put a couple fava beans in here. There's another pea right there. But maybe I didn't. Maybe I put those somewhere else. I've started harvesting more of these. All of them are much smaller than I had hoped. Again, these are the plants that were in that bad soil to start. The soil that like stunts everything, and I can't figure out why. But they're doing good despite that. And next year I will absolutely be checking any soil that I transplant my seedlings into, just in case. These ones are looking pretty good. And one of these is a sneaky hot one, and I haven't figured it out yet because I tend to harvest them. Like, oh, I'll pull this red one and that red one, and then I'll put them all into a dish, and it's like slightly spicy. Here's another pea. Slightly spicy, and I don't necessarily know why. Here's a tinier turmeric plant. This was a very teeny sprout given to me by a viewer, and definitely trying really hard in there. She told me that these should overwinter if I pile enough mulch on top of them, so I'm definitely going to be trying that on some of these smaller ones. I could not be happier with my zinnias. Every year I feel like planting zinnias is an excellent choice. They just keep blooming. Look at that. All these fresh new blooms. They attract so many beautiful butterflies, and just the entire aesthetic of this garden with the zinnias poking up everywhere. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. This is what a beautiful overgrown garden should look like. This is my fantasy of a garden, is just all these random flowers everywhere poking up with all the bright colors. Let's take a look. I just noticed these guys. That looks like a brand new brood of either leaf-footed bugs or maybe stink bugs, but probably leaf-footed is what that looks like. That's not ideal. Hopefully something will... Oh yeah, that looks like mom right there. Hopefully something will come along and eat these guys. I am still working on the insect video for you guys, I promise. I went from, oh, let's ID all the bugs in my garden, to let's talk about the entire ecosystem of how insects operate in a garden. There's some more making babies down there. Can you see them? They're hiding under the leaf. So it became a lot more complicated than I was expecting, but I want to do a good job for you guys. So we are continuing to work on that. These are cayennes right here. I could probably come through and pull a few of these. There's definitely a pretty big grace period on when to pull peppers. Really, sometimes they just start drying on the plant, and that can be okay too, as long as nothing ends up eating them. Buena mulatas. These guys, I'm not entirely sure what they are, because if you guys know me, you know I'm bad at labeling things. These ones, I pulled 2 of them this weekend, and they were hotter than I expected. You know, one whole pepper like this I put into a curry, and I just like sliced it in half and simmered it in the curry, and then I took it out, and the curry was still pretty spicy after that. Normally I would just put the whole thing in, but this specific recipe said to do that, so I did it, and man, I can't even imagine how spicy it would have been. These might be my banana pinos, an experimental farm network pepper. I think normally they would ripen to brown though, and not red, although the genetics on that is very variable, so it's hard to say exactly what I should expect from that. This also looks like a contender for a banana pino. Unclear. They're all spicy, and that's mostly what matters. Some of these ones that I have specific goals for, like these cute little trepaderas, they're very easy to identify. The Tabascos, unmistakably Tabasco peppers. And the fish peppers, of course, that white foliage back there, absolutely unmistakable and gorgeous. My little brassica section back here past the hot peppers, still not looking very lively. This single remaining broccoli, I think, it is trying so hard, and all the odds are against it, I think, out here. I'm probably going to try seeding more stuff directly into this and try my method that worked with the raised beds, where I overseeded and just kind of let the strongest come up. There's a couple, that one and that one are rutabagas. Happy to see that 2 survived out of the like 9 that I planted in here. And also a potato. There's always going to be random potatoes in this area. I don't know how I'm ever going to get rid of all of them. Back here by the corn, I had said that I would plant some stuff in between it. I have not done that yet. It's on the list of things to do. We've got one more brassica up here that survived from, well actually no, there's 2. There's that one and this one. I think these are Brussels sprouts of some kind, just based on the shape of the leaf and knowing kind of the sorts of stuff I planted out here. This one's getting munched a little bit, but it's starting to look like it's going to survive. So I have a little bit of hope, but again, I'm going to try overseeding this area and that area quite a bit. And then near all of that, we have the reserve sweet peppers that are actually not doing as good as the other ones, but still doing pretty good. I'm actually starting to see some pretty decent fruits on these. And this right here is an example of why zinnias pair so well with peppers, because this zinnia is providing quite a bit of support to this really long branch that has a lot of pepper weight hanging off of it. So I do think that they make a good pairing. And hold up for the wind. This fall season is definitely much breezier garden tours because of the shift in the seasons is causing a lot of air to be moving. Lots of different temperature airs is what causes the wind, because it's kind of rushing to fill in different gaps where the warm air rises and the cool air rushes in. But we will do our best and put up with it and hopefully clean it up in post. It's harder to see in this light, but the blue butterfly peas are finally filling out this trellis. This year is the second year I've had them, and they always take a little bit longer than I'm expecting to kind of get going. And I haven't been picking the flowers like I did last year because I definitely want lots of seeds, because I think I only have 1 or 2 actual of these blue butterfly pea plants out here. Some of this foliage is cucumber, and I also do have white butterfly pea flowers in here, and this one down here is another blue one, but it's very new, and it actually, if you look at the way the flower petals are, it's not quite as double layered as these other ones. You can see this one, how full and ruffled it is. So I would really like more seeds of this kind because they're so gosh darn beautiful. But if we look at the cucumbers, I've been pulling cucumbers off of these somewhat sad looking vines and actually have 2 big, quart jars full of lacto-fermented pickles at the moment. We're waiting for them to ferment. And I'm still getting misshapen cucumbers because of the inconsistent watering, but I am getting some cucumbers, and in a minute we'll look at the cucumbers that are coming on in the self-watering planter that I got, and in a few weeks I think we'll be able to actually start comparing whether or not they look better than these ones have been doing in the ground. The noodle bean's starting to look kind of sad. I think you can see it on the leaves. Oof, that was a spider web I just ran my face into. You can start seeing it on the leaves. Still putting on beans. Let's see if we can find some baby ones. Yeah. Here's a baby one. Here's a baby one. These ones are also pretty young, too small to pick. This one's about perfect size to pick, and this one's getting a little older. I am mostly pulling dried beans off of here at this point, not so many fresh, but I can still come pull a couple fresh if I need them for like a stir fry or something. And so even though the plant overall is looking much sadder, it is still doing some work for me here. I've got this one pea plant here. There's another one here. And I think if we come around, there is, oh, where is it? Yeah, this little one here hasn't started vining up yet. Also, we just passed my nasturtium, which I haven't mentioned because it's been so tiny I keep forgetting about it, but it did this week make a single flower. Nasturtiums have really been a struggle for me this year. None of the ones that I planted indoors ever sprouted, and I have no idea why. Some were saved seeds, some were store-bought seeds. All were seeds that have germinated before for me. And this year they just weren't doing it, no matter what I did. I think it's gonna do a second flower right there. This teeny one is the only one that I got, and of course it looks so sad compared to nasturtium from previous years. So I think I'll probably buy some fresh seed for next year and try again. Alright, we're going to move on over to the raised bed section, starting with the pergola here. Grapes and hardy kiwis. This one is the most recently planted, and I haven't seen it like really putting on new growth, but it is continuing to stay green and looking pretty healthy, and so I'm assuming that most of the growth that it's doing is under the ground, getting some good roots established, and getting ready for winter. I'm pretty excited to see how these plants come back next year. I'm not expecting fruit until maybe 2 years from now, but man, I think these are gonna be beautiful climbing up this pergola, especially with the grapes. Same thing, I'm expecting them to start kind of exploding next year now that they've gotten established this season and they've got a good root system going on down here. The grapes are, I think, Suffolk grapes, and the hardy kiwis I got from Stark Bros very recently. I think hardy kiwi, I think that is the variety. They are meant for this climate. They are not like a kiwi like you would buy in the store. They're like a grape-sized thing, and you eat the whole thing, skin and all. Pretty cool. I saw it. I wanted it. One of our spider friends still hanging out over here, still standing guard over my watering can and my peppermint, which is the only mint that has actually done well for me this year because it's the only one that didn't get supplemented with that new soil that was bad. Carrots over here, this carrot top experiment, some of these are falling over, but I mean, this is looking pretty good. This is a lot of carrot seeds. You know, I really thought I did a good job stripping these heads of all the seeds that were on them to save them, and like, look at everything that I missed. I'm excited to see how this pot of carrots kind of turns out. And here we have those cucumbers I was telling you about. They're starting to grow pretty quickly now. They also have their very own spider protector, who is currently munching something. Not quite sure what it is. But also in here, quickly getting outcompeted is some peas that I stuck in there just to kind of see how that would do. There's another one there. Yeah, look at the difference, and like even just the size of these leaves. You know, having adequate water while you're growing does make a difference. And with this little bit of trellising, I'm pretty excited to see this Vigo self-watering planter. I am planning on doing a full review of it at some point. It was supposed to happen earlier in the season, but I planted it with that bad soil and nothing grew, and you know, that's not really a fair way to review something. So now that we've actually got some good soil in it, I'm looking forward to telling you guys how this is actually working for especially a very water heavy plant. All the raised beds, they're not gonna look like fully recovered after just one good rain, but it definitely helps. I did want to show you guys my the word is escaping me, calendula. I was making seeds. Each of these like crescent moon shaped things is a seed for calendula. I need to come through and actually save some of these. I did already scatter some down here, kind of hoping that they would randomly sprout for me. My onion chive is actually looking incredibly sad. Maybe one of y'all can tell me if it is actually dying or if it's just like done for the season. But it was huge, it flowered, and now it just doesn't look so good. I am a little worried about it. Like, look at this. I barely moved it around and I got this one green bit to disconnect. It's not very strong at all. I've seen bulbing plants like the wild onions that grow here come back year after lots of abuse. So maybe we'll see something in the spring. Yeah, that just comes right off. No force necessary. Yeah, I don't know. Never grown onion chive before, but the fact that there's so many little pill bugs around here tells me that definitely lots of decaying plant matter for them to eat. Not a very healthy plant if they're trying to eat it. carrots are looking amazing. I feel like they've doubled in size this week since you last saw them. I mean, once these little true leaves start coming on, they can really grow pretty quickly. There's one pea in here. I don't remember putting it here, but I guess I'll allow it to stay. I do need to come through and think about thinning these out a little bit, probably this area here and this area here. And it is more clear now how uneven my seeding was, and that is, you know, the risk of doing the seeding the way that I did it. But I do still stand by the ease of doing the seeding compared to some of the stuff I've tried to do before, which is like more exact. I just feel like it's not worth it. You know, I can easily thin this out, and even though there's like some truly empty area over here, most of this, it will end up being pretty evenly covered by carrots once I thin out these two thicker patches. I'm also really happy to see that after my Greek oregano flowered, it is now coming back and doing more of its little ground cover thing again. I keep wondering every year if this is like its last year, if it's gonna finally be done, and especially with the drought, it was looking bad. But look, it just came right back. It looks amazing. And I won't be cutting back all of this until spring. Dead branches like this are really great overwintering for some of your native beneficial insects, so I recommend leaving it if you have the opportunity to do so. And here we have my biggest pest crushing my lemon thyme. Most of it's dead anyway. I think it'll come back though. I think it will. This raised bed that was planted the same time as the carrots is also starting to finally leaf out, although I will say it looks less densely planted than I had initially thought. So I did come through with some carrot seeds and try and fill in the gaps here with the Auxhart carrot seeds that I'd saved. Let's see if we can find any sprouts. It would be a little early, I think, to see sprouts. I think actually those two look like carrot sprouts. Can y'all see that? Itty bitty little things. Of course, plenty of little grass sprouts in here as well. But yeah, turnips. I think the leaves that are not fuzzy are my turnips, and then the fuzzy leaves are going to be my rutabagas, because I specifically planted my favorite turnips, which is the white lady turnip, whose leaves are not fuzzy, and that makes them much nicer to eat. Yeah, this one's very fuzzy. I don't know if y'all can see the fuzz on it. Yeah, eating fuzzy leaves in salad, not great. Eating nice non-fuzzy leaves, much better. And also the white lady turnip has done so well for me over the years, just growing in random conditions. This one is a beet. Now it's supposed to be an albino beet, and the fact that its little base looks red is weird to me. I don't know what I'm going to end up with. Also, the dwarf peas, you can tell they're dwarf peas. Like, look how squat they are. They're not trying to vine up really at all. Looking at the berry patch, in the fall I definitely expect to get a second wave of raspberries, and you can see the plant is trying its best to kind of put that on right now. But again, with the inconsistent rain that we've been having, I don't know how many I'm gonna get. I'm just kind of happy to see these plants survive, really. Blackberries have also produced like a couple of really good looking berries. If I come over here, you can see this one. Beautiful, beautiful blackberry. But only like 5 of them on this whole plant. And of course the strawberries, man, they are struggling. I do think that they will come back. You can see they're still surviving out here, and again, like the other area, they should come back before the grass, and they have shaded it out in the past. I'm hoping they will be able to do that again. Now, where the onion chives are finished and gone, garlic chives are in their prime. These look amazing. beautiful little flower heads. And look at all this really healthy looking green foliage. I'm really happy with how this garlic chive has turned out. And its neighbor over here, helping fill in some of the gaps, the St. John's wort, it seems to be very drought resistant. I haven't seen it struggling literally at all with the drought, and it likes just a little bit of that acidity in the soil, which is why I put it near my blueberries. Very happy with that. I haven't used any of it yet. St. John's wort is one of those medicinal herbs that interacts with everything, so you have to be very careful what you use it for. But even if I only use it as this like beautiful ground cover, like, that's good with me. I'd rather have that than grass. Over here where my fig and my elderberry are, I have some exciting developments. First of all, my itty bitty fig has a beautiful leaf on it and another green tip right here. I have been spending the water to keep this alive because the other one died so badly, and I didn't want to lose both. And then my elderberry, I noticed the other day, I've been watering it just in case, and look at that! My just in case was right. It's putting on some new foliage. It's not completely dead. So maybe this spring we'll actually start seeing some elderberry growth off of this, which would be super exciting. I was thinking I was going to have to start all over with a new cutting because that one looked so very dead. But I had hope, and that's why I kept watering it, and I'm really, really glad that I did. I am curious whether or not this has stunted it in some way. It's definitely not the most robust little start it could have had in my yard. But elderberry, I've heard, is very hardy, and I mean, the plant that I took that from at my friend's house is like literally taking over their yard. It puts out so many new shoots every year, so you know, I bet it'll do good. Before I leave you guys, I do want to talk about one more type of mushroom in the garden. Y'all who've been here with me for a while may know that I have planted wine cap mushrooms in the garden in the past, and I was really hoping that once I had them, they would kind of keep coming back every year, because people say, oh, once you have wine cap mushrooms, you always have them. But definitely, I didn't put down just a ton of mulch in the garden this past year, and I think it probably didn't have a lot of food. I saw a little bit of fruiting over by this trellis where I had piled up a lot of straw, and not really a lot over here, which is where I had originally seen a lot of them, especially in this area. I had a couple bales of straw here for a while, and right under them I got a ton of wine caps. So my plan is to put in more straw eventually, see if they come back, and maybe re-inoculate if necessary. But it's more like, it's one of those hands-off things that, like, if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, like, I'm not spending all my energy trying to really actively cultivate mushrooms in this area. It would just be something that would be a really nice bonus to have in the spring. There's an adorable little bird on top of my trellis right there. I bet it's an insectivore. I wonder if it's going to come through and look for those little nymphs that we saw earlier and munch a bunch of them. That would be really ideal. I can't tell what it is from here. It's not one of the ones that I normally see coming to my feeder, so it could be an insectivore. Alright guys, this is where I leave you for today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're new, then you can catch up on all the garden tours for the year up here, and you'll get to see how all of this started in the spring and kind of how it got to be the way that it is. And I hope that you find that really helpful, because there's a lot of things that go wrong, a lot of things that I address, and a lot of things that go really well, and I hope that you can kind of like steal my experience and not have to do all the trial and error yourself. And to those of you who've always been here, thank you so much. Your comments every week are so fun to go through, so please keep leaving those for me. I'd love to chat with you, and I will see you next week. Until then, happy gardening.